Welcome back, SUNY Genesee English 101 College Composition. This is Professor Melissa Siska, and this week we are looking at Module 8, Analysis and Synthesis. Analysis as critical thinking. Learning outcomes for this section. You will be able to explain the basics of analysis. You will be able to recognize barriers to analysis, and you should be able to describe the importance of suspending judgment to analysis. So what is analysis? Well, each academic discipline characterizes the analytical process to suit its needs. The essential skills of analysis are the following: breaking down information or artifacts into component parts, uncovering relationships among these parts, determining motives, causes, and underlying assumptions, and making inferences and finding evidence to support generalizations. And this is true no matter what discipline you are analyzing within. Another way to tell whether an assignment is asking for analysis is this. If the assignment asks you to determine how the parts or something relate to the whole, how something works, what something means, or why it's important, then the assignment is asking you to analyze. These are keywords you should be aware of so that you know an analysis is what you are supposed to be doing. Here's our first lecture response practice question. So open up a Word document or a Google document, type in week 11 lecture response and the number 1 and answer this question for number 1. When an assignment is asking you to analyze, what are you being asked to do? Answer this in your own words. You can pause the video and answer this now. Welcome back. All right, overcoming barriers to analysis. Analysis is a complex thinking skill, and all of us put up walls to avoid having to analyze certain situations, certain ideas, or certain information. While those barriers can sometimes provide comfort, they can also block us from deeper understanding and appreciation. Below are some common obstacles to analysis and some strategies to overcome them. Barrier 1, analysis might challenge my worldview. Barrier 2, analysis kills fun. Why do I have to think about it if I'm just enjoying it? And barrier 3, analysis invents meaning. So instead of something being carefree, it means you actually have to dive a little bit deeper into it. This is why people prefer not to in some cases. Suspending judgment. It's essential to suspend judgment when doing a proper analysis. And these are 5 tips to improve your critical thinking, which will help you suspend judgment and analyze sources before you begin writing. First, formulate your question. Second, gather your information. Third, apply the information. Fourth, open and honestly consider the implications. And fifth, explore other points of view. Keys to successful analysis. In this section, you will learn to identify analytical thesis statements, describe strategies for writing analytical thesis statements, and use analytical thinking to make inferences. Analytical thesis statements. In order to write an analysis, you want to first have a solid understanding of the thing you are analyzing. Remember, this means breaking down information or artifacts into their component parts, uncovering relationships among those parts, determining motives, causes, and underlying assumptions, and making inferences and finding evidence to support generalizations. When formulating an analytical thesis statement in college, there are 3 words or phrases to remember. First, what? What is the claim? Second, how? How is the claim supported? And third, and most importantly, so what? In other words, what does this mean? What are the implications, or why is it important? Why does anyone care? Don't be afraid to let your claim evolve organically. Use analysis to get you to the main claim. When you decide upon the main claim, make sure it is reasoned. Making inferences. Making inferences means coming to a conclusion based on evidence and reasoning. Sometimes we need to infer the main idea of a passage or figure out an implied thesis by carefully reading between the lines. When you are left to make inferences, you can check whether your inference is logical or not by asking yourself these questions. Is it based on words and sentences in the text? Is it based more on the author's words than your own point of view? Does it manage to avoid contradicting other statements made in the text? Does it align with the author's attitude or tone about the topic? Could it function as the thesis or topic sentence? Okay, here's practice question number 2. Go back to your Word document, enter number 2, and answer this one. In your own words, what is an inference? So pause the video and do that. All right, moving on. Types of analysis. In this section, you will learn how to describe rhetorical analysis. You'll be able to analyze an argument using rhetorical analysis, explain process analysis, and describe techniques for critical analysis. Rhetorical analysis. Rhetoric, as we know, is the art of effective and persuasive communication that is appropriate to a given situation. Although a thorough understanding of effective oral, written, and visual communication can take years of study, the foundation of such communication begins with rhetoric. Rhetoric is key to being able to write effectively and persuasively in a variety of situations. Every time you write or speak, you're faced with a different rhetorical situation. Each rhetorical situation requires thoughtful consideration on your part if you want to be as effective and impactful as possible. How to write a rhetorical analysis. When you analyze a work rhetorically, you explore the following concepts within the piece: the audience, the purpose, and the style or tone. And then the supporting appeals and claims, like we discussed before. Remember when we had those commercials and things? Those are ethos, pathos, and logos. So you want to also identify the supporting appeals and claims. Process analysis. Process is a rhetorical style that provides step-by-step direction or explanatory guidance. You may encounter quite a few process essays of various types in academic writing. Everything from a traditional process essay in which you choose a topic and describe the process, to a lab report in which you describe the process of conducting a lab experiment. Process can be classified a few ways, but for our purposes, they can be broken down into processes by people, processes by machines, and processes by nature. So that was rhetorical analysis and a process analysis. Finally, we have critical analysis. Critical analysis is probably what you think of first when you hear the word analysis. You probably wrote analyses of poems or stories in high school. You may have even analyzed films or advertisements. Analysis of a specific artifact is called critical analysis or critique. This is typically a process of developing a line of interpretation or a reading, and of identifying the interrelated parts of the text that are meaningful. All right, practice question 3. What are the types of analysis we just discussed? Just simply name them. Remember, there are 3. Pause the video, put a 3 on your practice question document, and answer this question. All right. Now that you're back, you're going to pause again in a second here, and you're going to go back and answer number 4 on your lecture response. You're going to take a look at the old cigarette ad below here and explain to me briefly how you would start to analyze it. You don't need to break it down and tell me what all its parts mean. Tell me how you would start to analyze it based on the things we just discussed. Pause the video and do that now. All right, moving on to our final section, synthesis. Our learning outcomes for this section will be that you can explain synthesis and demonstrate strategies for synthesis. Synthesis is the combining of two or more things to produce something new. When you read and write, you will be asked to synthesize by taking ideas from what you read and combining them to form new ideas. Analyzing consists of breaking something down into its parts and examining it closely. For example, you can break down a pizza into its ingredients. Synthesizing, on the other hand, consists of combining ideas to form new ones. So combining the ingredients to create the pizza versus breaking the pizza apart into its pieces. So hopefully that gives you a better reference and something to picture for the difference between synthesis and analysis. Remember, when you synthesize, you're not just compiling information, you're organizing it around a specific argument or question. And this work, your own intellectual work, is central to research writing. Synthesis and practice. So we often need to synthesize from multiple sources. Okay, so how do the sources speak to your specific argument or research question? You'll want to find the answers to those. You want to look at each source and find out, how do the sources speak to each other? What do they have in common? What do they agree or disagree on? You want to look at the sources and begin by asking, what are the points of agreement and where are their disagreements? Where are there or aren't there information gaps? And these things will help you to synthesize the information from multiple sources combined with your own intellectual work to create your final piece. Now, when you're writing and you want to cite information from a source, we use things called signal phrases. I know we discussed this briefly in the research modules earlier. A signal phrase is a phrase that introduces outside sources material that you will be quoting or paraphrasing. So this is going to be the final piece of your practice questions. For number 5, you're going to write 5 or more signal phrases that you could use in any writing when including information from sources. And you may use the internet to help you come up with these signal phrases. Pause the video and take care of that now. All right, and to wrap it up, just a quick review. Work on improving your analytical skills by keeping the following important concepts in mind. Recognize that analysis comes in many forms. Any assignment that asks how parts relate to the whole, how something works, what something means, or why something is important is asking you for analysis. Suspend judgment before undertaking analysis. You do not want to bias the analysis with your own personal opinions or previous experiences. Craft analytical theses that address how, why, and so what. Support analytical interpretations with clear, explicitly cited evidence. Make sure your readers always know where that evidence is coming from, so no one's questioning your judgment or your interpretation or your synthesis of these multiple sources. Remember that all analytical tasks require you to break down or investigate something. And analysis is the first step towards synthesis, which requires not only thinking critically and investigating a topic or source, but combining thoughts and ideas to create new ones. And that's it. That's all we have for this week for our video lecture. So exit out of the video and get those practice questions submitted on Blackboard. Have a great week.